The city never seemed to sleep. Its streets were always alive with the clamor of cars, hurried footsteps, and the endless chatter of people going about their daily lives. Amidst the sea of faces, no one seemed to notice the woman sitting on the corner, her shoulders hunched against the cold wind. But if you listened carefully, above the noise of the city, you'd hear her voice, a soft, haunting melody that could stop you in your tracks. Her name was Maria. She was a single mother, worn thin by life but not broken. Her face bore lines of worry and exhaustion, but her eyes still held a spark of hope. Maria wasn't sitting there for herself. Every note she sang, every lyric she poured her heart into, was for her 8-year-old son, Samuel. Samuel was the light of Maria's life, a bright, curious boy with dreams bigger than the world around him. He loved to draw, often sketching rockets and stars, telling his mother he would be an astronaut one day. But his dreams were now overshadowed by a cruel reality. Samuel was sick, very sick. He had been diagnosed with a rare illness that required immediate and costly treatment. Maria had tried everything. She'd worked double shifts at her waitressing job, sold anything of value, and begged for help from every charity and organization she could find. But the bills kept piling up, and time was running out. With no other options left, she turned to the only thing she had left, her voice. Maria had always loved to sing. Her mother used to tell her that her voice could melt even the coldest hearts. But now, that voice wasn't just a gift, it was a lifeline. Every day, she would take her worn stool, a small sign explaining her son's plight, and her tattered hat, and she'd set up on the corner of a busy intersection. She sang songs of hope, sorrow, and love, hoping that someone, anyone, would hear her and help. The days were long, and the nights were colder than she could bear. People passed by in a rush, barely sparing her a glance. Some dropped a few coins into her hat out of pity, but most walked by as if she were invisible. Maria's voice often cracked from exhaustion, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. One evening, as the sun began to set and the city lights flickered to life, Maria's voice wavered. She was tired, hungry, and starting to lose hope. Her songs had always been her source of strength, but tonight they felt like whispers against the roar of an indifferent world. She closed her eyes, her voice trembling with the weight of her desperation, when she heard a sound that didn't belong, a deep resonant purr of an engine. She opened her eyes to see a sleek black Lamborghini pulling up to the curb in front of her. The car's polished surface gleamed under the streetlights, and its presence was impossible to ignore. The door opened, and out stepped a man who looked as though he had stepped straight out of a movie. He was tall, with a commanding presence that made people stop and stare. He wore a leather jacket over a simple t-shirt, his sunglasses reflecting the city lights. As he approached Maria, the crowd seemed to part around him, their curious eyes following his every move. "Why are you singing here?" he asked, his voice calm but filled with curiosity. Maria hesitated. She wasn't used to people asking her questions, let alone someone who looked like they belonged on a red carpet. She took a deep breath and replied, "I'm singing for my son. He's sick, and I'm trying to raise money for his treatment." The man knelt down to her level, removing his sunglasses to reveal kind, piercing eyes. "What's his name?" he asked.
What would you do if you were her? Answer on the comments. Samuel, Maria said, her voice trembling. She went on to tell him about her son, the boy who loved rockets and dreamed of touching the stars. She spoke of his laughter, his courage, and the cruel illness that threatened to take him away. The man listened intently, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he stood up and said something that took her by surprise. "Sing for me. One more time." Maria didn't know what to make of his request, but she had nothing to lose. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and began to sing. This time, her voice carried not just desperation, but also a newfound strength. She sang for Samuel, for herself, and for anyone who had ever felt invisible. When she finished, The man was silent for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek leather wallet. From it, he handed her a check. Maria's hands shook as she took it, her eyes widening when she saw the amount. It wasn't just enough to cover Samuel's medical bills. It was enough to change their lives. Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man smiled. "Just someone who believes in your song." With that, he returned to his car and drove off, leaving Maria standing there, clutching the check as tears streamed down her face. The next morning, Maria paid off all of Samuel's medical bills. The doctors began his treatment immediately, and for the first time in months, she felt hope. But the story didn't end there. A few weeks later, Maria received a call from a prestigious music producer. He had heard about her encounter with the mysterious man in the Lamborghini and wanted to help her share her voice with the world. Maria was invited to perform at a charity gala, where her story and her songs moved the audience to tears. Maria's life transformed. She signed a record deal, and her music began to touch hearts across the globe. But she never forgot the man who stopped to listen, the man who saw her when no one else did. And as Samuel recovered, he would often sit with his mother, drawing pictures of rockets and stars, while she sang songs that carried the echoes of their journey.
Share your thought in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I pour my heart into crafting stories like this for you, and your support is the one helps me keep going. I appreciate having you on this journey,